Hey everyone, it's Brooke. Welcome back to my channel. Today I was going to do a book haul, but the weather's really gloomy and so the lighting level is low, and my camera and lighting levels, it just doesn't work in lighting levels that are low, like at all, pretty much. It gets really, you don't care about that. So instead I'm just going to do a book review, talk about a book that I read recently that I quite enjoyed. And I think there's a lot to talk about with this book, but not without spoiling it. So I'm gonna do my best to just sort of talk around the details, even though it's not a book that ends with a whole lot of questions answered, so I'm not sure I could even really spoil it, but there are just certain ways that the story unfolds that I think are best gone into completely blind. The book I'm talking about is Fever Dream by Samanta Schweblin. This is published by, in the US, Riverhead Books. She originally wrote it in Spanish. She's Argentinian, and it was translated by, I'm going to find it, Megan McDowell, and I knew that. And it's blurbed by such authors as Jessie Ball and Helen Phillips. So that gives you kind of an idea of the type of story this is. First and foremost, I really enjoyed this, and it is a sit down and read in one go. It's 170 something tiny little pages. I mean, this book is as big as my hand. You could literally, I just sit down in an afternoon and read this. So if you need to get a book count up, go ahead and pick this one up. It starts interestingly. Let's start it so you guys kind of know where it starts. They're like worms. What kind of worms? Like worms all over. It's the boy who's talking, murmuring into my ear. I am the one asking questions. Worms in the body? Yes, in the body. Earthworms? No, another kind of worms. It's dark and I can't see. The sheets are rough. They are bunched up under my body. I can't move, but I'm talking. So there's this woman named Amanda. She's in a rural hospital. I think this book probably takes place in Argentina. She's in a rural hospital in a bed. She's dying. There is a young man sitting beside her bed, sitting at her bedside. His name is David, and they're having this conversation. David and Amanda are not related. So part of this conversation they're having is Amanda trying to figure out who David is, David's importance, why he's talking to her, the events that have led her to be in the hospital, and when those are slowly unfold as we hear the story prodded by David and his questions. And David, seems to be trying to get her to a very specific point. A point where something important happened, that precise moment. And so he's really directing her questions, and sometimes she goes with that, and sometimes she pushes back against. And in all of these ways, as the story unfolds, pieces start to come together, but you really don't know what the picture that they're putting together is, which is interesting. So it's creepy, it's unsettling. You never really know where any of the people in this book stand. You never really know what's happening. And full disclosure, you don't really know what's happening by the end. This book does not present questions and then answer those questions in any sort of definitive way. It's been described as a ghost story, which I don't know that you could take literally. You could, you don't have to. It's really up for reader interpretation. There are repeating images. There's definitely some thematic stuff happening on a surface level. Things about the environment, children, burrowing creatures. I mean, you heard the first page talking about the worms. There's also a child in here that has a stuffed mole. So there's something going on there. There are horses. There's water. There's like mother-daughter, or just mothers compared to fathers. There's a lot going on without you ever really knowing what's going on, and it's super creepy. There is a true horror moment that would have been great in the movie, would have freaked me out. It would have totally had a jump scare. She writes really well, really atmospherically. It was necessary for me to keep turning the pages. It was necessary for me to know how she decided to end this story. I have thought about it every day since finishing. I have looked up interviews, wanting to know as much as I can about what she was kind of going for, the kinds of questions she expected her readers to ponder, and looked at just people's reviews and what they took from the story, because it would be, if your book club was up for like sort of a horror-ish story, it'd be a great book club book. So much to discuss, and like sets itself up so well for like rereading and trying to like see if, knowing how it ends now, if I go back and start it again, do I see things along the way that make more sense or less sense? Does knowing how she ends her story affect the reading at all? I mean, I don't know. It feels like an old school kind of suspense horror movie. It was a delight to read. Like I said, in an interview I read with her, she said that in order to write, she feels like there has to be some sort of tension between the storyteller and, the audience, and that tension is where this book really just wins. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I think you should pick it up. I think it's not like graphic or in that kind of like gory way kind of horror. It's not. It's slow and it's creepy and it's unsettling and it's just great. It's great for a cold day like today with it's like raining and gray. Perfect. So I highly recommend it. I look forward to reading more of her stuff. She's written other stuff, but it hasn't been translated. I think she's fabulous. I like reading her interviews. I think she gives really interesting answers. And honestly, it might go down as one of my favorite books of the year. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I think I'll read it again multiple times. I might try to get my book club to read it so I can sit down and discuss it with somebody. I just think it's sort of like the horror movie, that raises more questions than answers, and then you like leave the movie trying to figure out, oh, well, what did this mean and what did that mean? It was just super fun, and so it gets my recommendation. It was hard to talk about though, so I don't know if this was effective in any way, other than maybe it has you intrigued, which is I think the best way you can go into this particular book. So go and find a copy and give it a chance, and then come back and like talk to me about your feelings, about your thoughts, about the things that you think are happening in this. And it's so hard to talk about. Anyways, okay, I'm start rambling. Bye guys.